Welcome back to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest is no stranger to sacrifice, service, or resilience. From the streets of California to the battlefields of Iraq, from the prison walls to the emergency room, Joe has lived a life defined by courage under pressure. A U.S. Army veteran with 16 years of service, Joe's journey took him from soldier to military police instructor, bail recovery agent, correctional officer, parole agent, and now a frontline EMS and ER worker in Pennsylvania. But behind the uniform is a man still carrying the weight of war and the loss of a brother in arms, Jose Torrey. In this episode, we unpack the highs and heartbreaks of a life spent in high-intensity service and how the death of his closest friend changed everything, and what it means to live with 70% PTSD and still show up for others every single day. Grab your headphones and get ready. This is a raw, real, and deeply human conversation about duty, loss, healing, and the relentless pursuit of purpose. Let's get started.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158. Welcome back, everybody, to 8158 Podcast Stories of Sacrifice. We have another wonderful guest today. His name is Joe. He served his country and he serves his community. Let's give a warm welcome to Joe. How's it going?
Good, buddy. Good. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's definitely an honor to have you on this show. I know we did a pre-interview with you, and you definitely have an amazing story, definitely a fulfilling career path. And we just want to share that with everybody that tunes in and listens to the podcast, and maybe they could have something to take away from your story.
Sure.
So, Joe, you've lived a life of service. You're an Army veteran. You did some bail recovery. You're in corrections, parole, EMS, and the ER work. When did you look back, and what drew you to this kind of work in the first place?
Well, I don't know. I kind of always wanted to do something in the first responder realm as a kid. For the most part, I think I wanted to be a cop growing up. I don't know. I kind of goofed around a little bit as a kid. Didn't take it too seriously, but when I was 20, I got into a little bit of trouble. Nothing too serious. But it drove me into the military. It's kind of what gave me the deciding factor. I wanted to join the military. And I had my first combat deployment in 2004, 05. And when I got back from that, I came back to the civilian world. I went back into the reserves, and there just wasn't really enough, adrenaline, I guess, for me coming back and getting. I came back and I got back into plumbing. I was a plumber. I was 25 at the time when I came back. And, not that there's anything wrong with plumbing. I mean, we certainly all need our plumbers out there, but it was tough work. It's very tough work. It's backbreaking work. And, there wasn't enough adrenaline in it for me. So I met a buddy that, who was also a plumber, who was kind of looking to move on a little bit and figure something else out. He was not prior service. But he also kind of had a little bit of a first responder bug, too. And so we decided to get together. This was when I was living in California. I was born and raised in Southern California. And we got together. We figured out what the state of California wanted in terms of being licensed to do bail recovery. And we got licensed to do it. In the state of California, you have to be Penal Code Section 1299 compliant, which requires a variety of classes and training that you have to do to be certified to do that job. And so that's what we did. And, we did that for a few years. And then things just kind of snowballed from there. I ended up, teaching military police operations at Fort Bliss, contracting, corrections work, like you said, parole work, it just kind of all snowballed from that initial combat deployment in 0405. So that's kind of what drove my path for the most part, in my, my adult career.
Okay. So you joined the military in 2000 and you graduated just before 9/11. What was that transition like from training into a world that had suddenly changed?
I would say for the most part, it was probably fairly seamless, I would say. So like, as most of us do, I remember 9/11 like it was yesterday. I remember where I was at, what I was doing, the whole 9 yards. I was 21 years old and I had just gotten back from Army basic training. I think I got back in, I want to say it was like the beginning of August. I got back, and then, September is when everything happened. And I was like, wow, that really escalated quickly. I go from basic training right into war, and we haven't really seen a big massive foreign conflict like that in quite a while, prior to that. And then, so, the official invasion took place in 2003, and my first deployment was 2004. So from the time that it happened to the time where I had my first combat deployment, it was a lot of, just a lot of training and kind of preparation for that, so it wasn't like, I got back as a brand new, soldier, and they just kind of threw me in there. There was some train up and some work up and some processing that took place prior to, that initial deployment. So.
And we talked about you were deployed in 2004. What do you remember about that first tour?
Boy. I remember when it was hot, it was really hot. And, when it was cold, the weather was really cold. I remember I had at one point I had a picture of a thermometer that I had put on the hood of one of our Humvees. I remember it was in August, and that the temperature gauge on it was like 140. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Yeah. It was really, really hot. I feel like anything after like 115, 120, it all feels the same anyway. You can get those kind of temperatures in Arizona,
Right.
But yeah, I remember it. The temperatures were pretty crazy. Aside from that, I remember my very, very first, quite literally my first day in Iraq. So when we deployed, we landed in Kuwait, and we went to Camp Buring, and we did some weapons qualifications there, and just kind of got acclimated to the desert, that type of thing. And we went to the gate, which was Navstar, and it was kind of the gate between Iraq and Kuwait. And from there, we drove up into Kuwait, we drove from Kuwait up into Iraq. And we drove straight. We were in a convoy. We drove straight, and this is kind of a silly story. It's not a super serious story, but when we first got to where we were going, we went to Fob Spiker in Tikrit, and I was on a very, very small team. My team was 16 guys, and our responsibility was transporting dignitaries and flag officers from point A to point B. We didn't have a real significant chain of command. It was our small team. We had Sergeant First Class, who was our team leader, and then it went directly to the Command Sergeant Major of the division. So really small unit. We lived in old, like Saddam Air Force officer housing is where we stayed at. Okay. My very, very first day there, I was the first member of my team to get to the house. And mind you, it's on this desolate base. It's a big base, but it's the middle of the desert. And I'm just full of dirt and sweat and just disgusting, just filthy. And so I got a room in the house. I went to a bedroom and I started downloading my gear. And I stripped down to my underwear. I'm sitting on the bed and I take my rifle apart and I'm cleaning it. It's got a bunch of dirt and grime and stuff in it. And all of a sudden I hear just massive explosions. And I'm like, shit, like what is happening? Right. Like I just got here. Like what is going on, So I put my rifle back together and I kind of bound from my bedroom through the house up to the rooftop by myself. There's nobody there. And I get up to the rooftop. There's like this stairwell that leads to the rooftop. And I get up to the rooftop and I kind of peek over the ledge to see what the hell is going on. And it's EOD. It's the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Group. So it's U.S. Army soldiers just getting rid of old ordnance, and I'm in my underwear and I'm sweating bullets and I'm scared and I'm like, what is going on? I just sat down right there on the rooftop and I just kind of just prayed for a second. I was like, thank God that that's what that was, but that was my very, very, very first real experience, day one in Iraq. And then later that day, some of my other team members started showing up and, things kind of mellowed out a little bit and got a little bit better, after that. But that was day one. And then, like I said, we were a really small unit. I think we did like 335 missions in 12 months outside the wire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did a lot. We were always moving. And we were pretty lucky. My team never lost anybody. And I feel very fortunate, about that. We had teams that we worked with, guys that we worked very closely with over there that, good buddies that we made over there that we lost during that year that we were over there. But my team was pretty fortunate. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of that. There's one other story I remember that was kind of significant for me. We were on like this 7-day mission. We had a colonel who was one of our primary packages, right, that we would transport. And he was a full bird colonel. And, for the listeners who are not super familiar with like military rank structure, like your next promotion is a 1-star general, right? So we always said that this colonel was on Star Search, because if you remember that old show Star Search back in the day, yeah, we said he was on Star Search because he could fly. We could fly him from point A to point B if we wanted to, but he always wanted to drive because he wanted to get in. He wanted some combat experience because it helps with that promotion to get that 1-star. That was always the joke, that we made. Well, this one particular trip that we were on the road for it was days, literally days. We were just bouncing from outpost to fob to just different bases and such. And we got to this one little combat outpost, tiny little spot, and we were all just dead tired, dead to the world tired. And when there's incoming mortars and rockets and rounds and things like that, there's a siren that goes off. And there's these concrete bunkers outside, right? Really, super thick concrete bunkers that, we're supposed to run and take cover on when those sirens go off. And we got to this base and we were all just so tired, and we finally got into a tent and we got into a rack, and we heard the siren going off of incoming mortars coming in, and we all kind of popped our head out of bed and looked at each other, and we were like, screw it, I'm staying in bed. Like, I'm not even worried about it. If this is it, this is it. But I'm sleeping. Like, we were worked that much. We were that tired that
Wow.
and it turns out that those mortars ended up hitting outside of that little combat outpost anyway. So we never got a direct hit that day anyway. But whether that's what was going to happen or not, we all just kind of made the consensus that we're staying in bed because screw it, we were just that tired,
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. But yeah, those are some of the memories I had from. That was 2004. What, 21 years ago now?
Yeah, 21 years ago.
Yeah, I'm surprised I even remember some of that stuff, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
But
it feels like ages.
yeah, really. Yeah, I'm 45 now. I was in my early, mid-early 20s then,
Yeah.
Jeez. So.
Yeah, it seems like ages, but yet it seems like it was yesterday.
It does.
Weird.
It does, though. It does seem like it was yesterday. You think back on some of that stuff, and it's like, I can picture myself. I can see coming up over that rooftop and looking down on those EOD guys and just being relieved. Like, I can picture that like it was just yesterday, So, yeah.
Yeah. That now that's an image that I'll never get out of my head.
Yeah. It was pure relief. I was very happy that that's what was happening.
Yeah. I can imagine jumping out in your underwear with a rifle just to check out what the hell is going on.
And that's exactly what happened. And to be honest, I was so scared at that point. I was by myself. I didn't think about anything else. I was just like, damn, man, I'm not even sure what to do right now. I know I need to get high and try to get a view of what's happening. And so that's what I did. And, I lucked out. I got lucky that day.
Yeah. That's a pretty funny story, though. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about your friend Jose. Can you tell us about him? How did you guys meet, and what kind of a bond did you guys share?
Yeah. So Jose Torrey, the kid was like family to me and to my family. So he was significantly younger than me. I remember when he was born, so
Right.
Our families, we grew up playing Little League baseball. Our community, it was huge in my family and in our community. We made lifelong friends out of Little League baseball. And the Torrey family was one of them. And, so I have two younger brothers, and both of them were friends with Jose's brothers as well. They were a little bit closer in age. Jose was the youngest. He was the second to youngest, but so we grew up playing Little League baseball, the pool parties, the family events, the weddings, everything, the funerals. Our families were always together because we always knew everybody, and we were always very, 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 very close. And so, Jose, was born, and he, obviously part of the family, and he started playing baseball, and he, just like all of the other members of the family, and he came to me the one day and asked me about joining the Army. And I had already been on combat deployments at that point, and of course I hyped it up. I served my country. I'm very proud of that. I love my country. I feel like I'm a pretty patriotic guy. I encourage anybody who would want to do that, So, so he came and talked to me about it, and, I hyped it up, and he joined, and he went to basic training, and he came back super proud of himself, and he was excited about his decision that he made, and then the day came where, he was going to come down to his first deployment, his first military deployment. And like I said, because of our age difference, it's not like we didn't hang out together a lot. You know what I mean? It would be like me hanging out with my youngest brother. It's the same type of dynamic. He was like a younger brother to me,
Right.
But he came and talked to me when he knew that he was going to deploy overseas. And, I gave him, whatever advice I had at the time, and told him that, keep his head on a swivel, and pay attention to what he's doing, and, those kinds of things.
Right.
So he went on his deployment there, and, he never made it back. And, that's something that I don't think my mom might know this, but there's not a whole lot of people that really know, how much I kind of struggled with that, because, it isn't like he was like a best friend, like somebody that I hung out with every single day. He was like a younger brother,
Yeah.
And, not somebody that I saw on a daily basis, but when I did see him, we high-fived, and I told him I was proud of him, and I feel like he maybe looked up to me a little bit, and it was a struggle for me when I found out that he didn't make it. I kind of had a little bit of guilt, about that. So that was a tough thing for me, and boy, I really, really, really felt some guilt, because so Jose has two older brothers, and the oldest, he committed suicide in I want to say it was like middle school. So his mom lost her oldest son, and then her youngest son. So that kind of resonated with me a little bit also,
Right.
So yeah, there was some guilt there, and I didn't really kind of show it a whole lot at the time. I was really kind of angry. I was upset about it, and I wanted to go back and do more, I wanted to go back overseas and do more. And ultimately that's ended, what I ended up doing. But yeah, that's kind of the gist, the history, between Jose and myself.
So you were basically back in the States when that happened?
I was stationed at Fort Bliss. Yeah.
Okay.
I was stationed at Fort, I was on active duty orders at the time. I was stationed at Fort Bliss. I was a military police instructor at the time. So I worked at a military police training facility. And, we taught detainee operations, military police operations, personal security detail, a variety of combat mission sets. So if if you were in a unit that got tasked with a military police operation, you would filter through my training site for train up prior to the deployment. So I was training soldiers for combat deployments when I got that news.
Right. So after he passed, you had went back to Iraq. What was that, about 2011?
Yeah. So he passed January 15th, 2011, and I mean, fortunate or unfortunate, however you want to look at it, I was approaching the end of my orders, and so instead of re-upping my orders to stay at the training site for another year, I decided to come off of orders, go back reserve status, and deploy as a Department of Defense contractor. That was my way of. That was the fastest way for me to get back into Iraq. And so that's what I did. I used military connections, people that I knew through the military who were now contractors. I talked to them. They got me in and on a contract, and I deployed in March of 2011 back to Iraq, and ironically back to the same base and the same houses that I deployed in 2004. Same block, same block. Yeah.
Right back in the same story.
Same story. Yeah. I was doing the same mission too at the time. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I was just doing it on the civilian side, on the contractor side versus, the uniform side.
Right. Now, do you think that was a way of honoring him or processing your grief because of his passing?
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. I think maybe a little bit of both. I was upset. I was upset that he had passed away. I was upset that I felt like I kind of played a role in, his decision making and joining the military, and now he's, no longer with his family, and so I was upset about that, and there was definitely some grief that needed process there. I think maybe that was probably the biggest driving factor for me at the time. I think I was kind of pissed off and wanted some more. There's other factors that come into play. I mean, I'm going to keep it real. I mean, contractors make a lot of money. They pay very, very well, and a lot of military guys, that are in a position to do that kind of job. A lot of them did it. They picked up contracts, and you kind of deploy again doing a military mission as a civilian. So it's a little bit more laid back, but it's kind of the same type of thing in terms of mission set. so there's some excitement there, and there's some adrenaline there, and it pays really, really well. And all of those things were a factor for me. I would be lying if I said that that wasn't true.
Right.
But I don't think that I'm not entirely convinced that I would have thought about that initially had I not gotten the news about Jose.
Right.
That was kind of a clicking factor. Like, I think, I can get back over there if I wanted to. I could go soon. I could go now. I just got to get on a contract. And
Right.
so that was kind of where my thought process was at the time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Looking back, how did his death affect your mental health, especially while dealing with being in the service and being a contractor?
I mean, that's a tough question. So my mental health, I was kind of subconsciously kind of compartmentalizing things over the years, between, my combat deployment in 0405, his tragic death, some of the different things that, I got to see and do and be a part of as a contractor. Some of which I don't entirely agree with even to this day. But my mental health didn't take a turn for the worst until probably 2016. I ended up getting divorced from my first wife. When I came home. My story's kind of all over the place, and I apologize.
No,
But
good. Go ahead.
I came home from contracting when I was done, completely done in 2014. That's why I got a job as a corrections officer. And when I came home for good, I was just different. My anxiety was a lot higher. My fuse was a lot shorter. I just wasn't the same. My ex-wife will tell you the same thing, that I just wasn't the same guy. And it led to some bad decision making on my part. Our marriage wasn't super great anyway. We were married for 14 years, and of those 14 years, I did the math the one day, and I spent almost 7 years away from her and the kids on military deployments, or, contractor deployments, or what have you. Collectively, I would come home for leave, and then I would leave again. And that was on and off for a long time. And so, though things weren't, really great between us, I made some bad decisions, which led to our divorce. I think that we were heading down that path anyway. I went about it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And when her and I separated, when we divorced, we were at that point living in Pennsylvania, and we mutually agreed that she could take the kids and go back to California, which is where her and I met. That's where the grandparents are. That's where the uncles and cousins are. That's where everybody is. Because like I told you at the beginning, I was born and raised in Southern California. And
Yeah.
so was she. And so her entire support group was there. The kid's family was there. I thought that, at the time that was the best, though difficult for me, the best decision for the kids. And the day that they drove away from the house, I remember I looked out the window and I just started crying, and I don't think I stopped for, a month or two. I mean, I'm being a little bit facetious about that, but you know what I mean? It was just on and off. And things started happening. Things started coming up, dreams, nightmares, and night sweats and sleepless nights, and having, I don't, I really kind of hate the term flashback, because I don't think that that's what it was, but I would be driving down the road and all of a sudden I would be in a different place. I would be back overseas. I'd be in something else. And then I would just snap out of it. So this traumatic event of me, kind of losing my kids, just kind of triggered a massive mental health shift for me. And that's really where the mental health stuff really kicked off for me. And it just snowballed. It just snowballed into, that event, into military stuff. Childhood stuff was brought up that I didn't even really realize was there. And so that's kind of where that started for me. That mental health shift kind of started for me was there. And as far as Jose goes, he did play a pretty significant part in that. Because again, there's that guilt factor for me. Excuse me. There's a saying, all gave some gave all. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Jose falls into that category, I gave some, and everybody else who made it home, gave some, and those that didn't, gave it all. They left it all out on the field, and so a lot of that did play a part for me in that mental health shift as well.
Right. And this was during your transition from military life and contracting life into civilian world?
Yeah. So I got home in 2014 for good from contracting, and that's when I got a job as a corrections officer. And from 2014 to 2016, I was home with the kids and my now ex-wife. And I was, like I said, my mental health, I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't realize it at the time, but the anxiety was starting to surface, and the agitation and the short fuse, and all of those things. And I honestly, if I'm being fair, I don't know if specifically if it was the transition from the military life, the deployment life, to stateside, civilian life. I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't know. But it certainly, was a factor. I think. I don't know how definitive it was, but it was certainly a factor. And yeah, it played a part. The adrenaline stuff wasn't there too much. I did find some of that in corrections and in parole. I did find some of that adrenaline stuff there. But I don't know. That's just kind of where it lasted 2 years with my ex before we ended up separating, and then that's when things really got nasty for me. It was after that, 2016 is when that hit.
Right. So do you think it's your career choices seem to be tied to adrenaline, obviously, in high stakes work. Do you think that was a coping mechanism to deal with your traumas or anything like that?
I'm going to say, yeah, a little bit. So I enjoy the adrenaline and the high stakes stuff. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. But during this very low period in my life, part of this was, I was kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I was looking for ways to be unsafe. Basically, I don't know what's the best way to describe that, but I was making very poor decisions, and working as a corrections officer, I was kind of able to fuel my depression with more bad decisions. I was kind of a tough corrections officer. The inmates all knew what they were going to get from me. I was the same guy every day, but I was very policy oriented, and the majority of the time that I spent as a CO was the majority of my real severe depression, and I would get into it with inmates. I didn't really care about what the potential outcome would be. So if if I had an issue with somebody, or somebody had an issue with me, we'd go into the closet and figure it out, the old school way,
Mm-hmm.
And we had linen closets that didn't have cameras and stuff in them, and I gained a degree of respect from the guys, from the inmates, for doing that as well, but there was really no fear. And in retrospect, there really should have been. I worked at a state facility. It was a pretty good sized state correctional institution, but I didn't care what the outcome was at all. I could care less what it was. There were times where I would take my radio off and run up in a cell with two cellies in there, because they had an issue with me or I had an issue with them. And I'm not sitting here saying that I always came out on top, because I certainly did not. I didn't. But again,
Right.
I didn't care. I was living a very, very self-destructive type of lifestyle at that time,
Right.
and it was all fueled by my depression and everything that I was going through, and I started getting help it was kind of towards the end of my time inside the prison before I promoted into parole. And so and that was a transition in and of itself. That was not an overnight fix at all for me. But I don't know. I guess I kind of went down a rabbit hole there. I don't know if that answered your question or not. But
No, that was pretty good. It's good to know a lot, what goes on in the minds of, people who have been through a lot of traumas and the self-destructive behaviors that they take on. Yours is more of a physical self-destructive instead of a mental.
it was. I would drive really, really fast without wearing seatbelts. I did it on purpose. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I said, I would get into, physical altercations behind closed doors, just because, I don't know. It was very, very self-destructive. I look back on it now and I think to myself how silly that was, and how irresponsible that was. But I'm keeping it real with you. That's just who I was at that time.
Right.
That's who I was, and it was a very low, very dark time for me, And I've slowly, kind of crawled out of that space, but it took a long time. It did not happen overnight,
Right. Yeah, it sounded like that was one of your coping mechanisms to let out some aggression.
Yeah, it really was.
I can't say I blame you, but obviously it was the unhealthiest way, but
Yeah.
we don't always know the best way to handle certain things, especially when we don't have an outlet.
Yeah. And
Nobody
the
to
thing
talk
is,
to.
I kind of, really, to be honest with you, it just dawned on me at this exact very moment right now. It just dawned on me that I never really had like a drug and alcohol problem. Like I never used drugs or alcohol as a coping mechanism, which
Yeah.
some people that's their go-to. I will tell you that I did. There were times where I drank and I got drunk and whatever happens type of thing. But I can't honestly say that alcohol was ever certainly never drugs for me, but I can't say that alcohol was ever really a coping mechanism either for me. But it was more of kind of I don't want to say violence either, because I was never really a violent guy, but just kind of the high risk, bad decision making,
Right. Risky behaviors. Yeah.
yeah, the risky behaviors. Yeah, that's the best way to say it. Yeah, the risky behaviors. That was kind of my coping mechanism for my, my just very, very destructive behavior,
Right. Can definitely relate to that stuff.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of risky behaviors in my day.
I bet. Yeah. And, I don't know. It's just, I guess everybody kind of finds their own coping mechanisms, and you don't really realize what they are until afterwards. I guess I didn't at the time. I would have never admitted that I was coping with anything at the time that I was going through all that. I probably didn't even know, really, to be honest with you. I was just pissed.
Right.
I was just a mad, angry, just pissed off dude. I remember at one point when I saw one of my therapists, I went to the therapist and I was like, I specifically remember this. I was like, I'm pissed. I'm so angry that I'm so angry all the time. Like as it's making me more angry because I can't stop being angry all the time. Does that make sense? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I was
Right.
just so angry all the time and I couldn't get past it. I couldn't get over it. And it was just making me more angry, you know? And I don't know, I guess that's just the way that I dealt with it.
We will return after this quick ad break.
The William H. Bill Butler Jr. Foundation is on a mission to honor first responders and support those who serve. We provide scholarships for families who have lost a hero in the line of duty, offer second chances to juvenile offenders who are working to rebuild their future, and help new recruits pursuing careers as first responders. Through generous donations and the sale of merchandise, we're building a community that uplifts, empowers, and creates lasting impact. You can be a part of this mission as well. Visit 8158podcast.com to donate or shop today. Together, we can support those who serve, honor those we've lost, and give hope to those who need it most. Behind every badge is a story, and behind every story is a sacrifice. This is the 8158 podcast, where we honor the lives and legacies of first responders and their families. If our mission speaks to your heart, if these stories move you like they move us, join us on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you'll get ad-free listening, exclusive merchandise, behind-the-scenes content, and video episodes only available to our patrons. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you can be a part of it. Support us at patreon.com/8158podcast. Let's continue to share the stories that deserve to be heard.
and I couldn't get past it. I couldn't get over it. And it was just making me more angry, you know? And I don't know, I guess that's just the way that I dealt with it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their own way to dealing with certain things, and you obviously found your way to deal with it at that time.
Yeah,
Fortunately, you sought out help
I
to
did.
change that, which is a good thing. It's
I have to thank my current wife for that.
yeah.
My wife now, yeah, her and I have been together now about 10 years, and um, she's the one really that pushed me into treatment. You know, she kind of gave me the ultimatum, and she has been there for the real lows, the lows that nobody else knows about, the lows that no one else has seen.
Right.
And she's the one that really pushed me into the treatment. And I was, kind of hesitant on doing it. You know, I was like, I don't need it. I don't, um, I certainly did need it. And once I got into treatment, I went through a couple of therapists. You know, it's my opinion that you have to find the right fit. You know, it's not like a one size fits all type of situation. You know, you got to find the right person, and I support that. I think that it's okay for somebody to say, you know, I don't want to go see that person anymore because they're not doing anything for me. And I say that because that's what I went through. You know,
Right.
until I finally found somebody that I felt very comfortable talking to, somebody who really helped me get on the right medication to help stabilize me, you know. And I mean, and I'll keep it real with you. You know, I still take medication now to help. You know, I'm a ginger. I'm a pissed off dude anyway. You know, that's that's how the cookie crumbles. You know, but it's I don't see a therapist anymore. But I am still on meds, and that's probably going to be for the rest of my life. You know,
Yeah.
because I have moments where, you know, I still have dreams about things here and there, and things pop up in my mind, and I have memories of things, and you know, like I said, I'm a ginger. My fuse has always been pretty short most of my life, you know.
All right.
But I'm balanced. I feel more balanced now than I have post 2004, you know. So.
Right. Yeah, I definitely can totally relate to that. Brianne, she was the one that kind of convinced me to get help when I needed the help because I was, suffering with a lot of childhood traumas and compounding traumas, and I had to take medications, and I'm still seeing a therapist, and I let her into the therapy sessions so she can kind of get to know why
Yeah.
I am the way I am.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
better understanding, and
I
it's
think it's a
helped a
great
lot.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing. I fully support it. There's a lot of, you know, like stigma out there about treatment and asking for help and being on medication. And I think I have found that, you know, the biggest misconception I think is the medication. You know, it's always the same thing. People say, "Oh, I don't want to walk around like a zombie." Well, I've never walked around like a zombie, you know?
No.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest misconception is people say, well, I don't want it to change me. I don't want it to. Well, I did want it to change me, you know, a little
Right.
bit, you know, and I've never walked around like a zombie, you know? So I think, you know, for those out there that are considering it or think that they might need it, you know,
Yeah.
do it, you know, do it, find the right person and give it a shot because it might just change you a little bit, you know, for the better, you know, might make
Right.
your life just a little bit better, you know?
Yeah. With the right combinations of medications, it definitely helps.
Yeah.
It's definitely helped me quite a bit. And it was tough, admitting that I had a problem. It wasn't like a problem, but it was an issue that I didn't want to face. But, it all came to a head and it had to do. But, you're right. You don't walk around like a zombie. I drive truck for a living,
Yeah.
and it's done me a world of benefit to take the medications.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully support it. I fully support it. And you know what, really, to be honest with you too, I think before, long ago, probably back in 2016, before I got on medication, I think I thought the same thing too. At the time, I'm like, I don't know about this medication thing. I don't want to be taking a bunch of pills. I don't want to, but at the end of the day, I bit the bullet and said, let's just give it a shot. And really, it's been the best thing for me.
Right. Exactly. That's pretty awesome. I'm glad you're doing that and you're getting yourself help, and just keep it up. It's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, likewise, man. Likewise.
Yeah, it'll keep you stable.
Yeah. We all need a little bit of stability, man.
Right. Yeah, because I'm Hispanic, I'm Spanish and Puerto Rican and Scottish, so I have a short fuse in myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
So moving on now, you'd retired from corrections in 2024, but didn't slow down. You went to EMT school in 2023. Now you're a paramedic at school for full time.
Yeah. So I just to backtrack just slightly. So I got out of the prison in 2018. I promoted into parole. I became a field agent for Pennsylvania State Parole. Mm-hmm. And I did that for another 5 years. And I had enough. To be honest with you, for me personally, it was never the inmates inside the jail. It was never the parolees. It was always the administration for me. It's just a nightmare, working for the Commonwealth, and I'll put it out there. I don't care. It is, and it drove me to retire at 44 years old, like full retirement, pulling a pension, the whole 9 yards, 44 years old. Yeah. And I had another probably good, 15, maybe 20 years I could have put into that if I wanted to, but I couldn't do it anymore. I simply couldn't do it. So I did. I retired 2023, March. No, we're in 25. So it would have been March 2024 is when I retired. And a year prior to retirement, I went to EMT school because I'm going to retire at 44 years old, but I'm not done. I'm still young. I'm still young enough to work. I'm not going to find a recliner and, put my ass in it for the rest of my life. I'm not built that way,
Right.
So I went to EMT school a year prior to retiring because that way I had something to kind of transition into. And it turns out that I love it. I absolutely love it. It's awesome. Probably one of the best things that I've ever done career-wise. And I've done a lot of things. And being an EMT is very, very rewarding. You get a little bit of the adrenaline, there with that kind of job. Excuse me. You get to help people. You get to see, kind of the ups and downs of society. It's a very rewarding job, and I really, really like it. So when I retired, I made the decision. So by the time I retired, I had been an EMT for about a year, right? So okay. I said, well, I've been an EMT for a year. I feel like maybe I can do a little bit more. I'm going to go to paramedic school. Well, the hospital in my area, their emergency room technicians, they do a lot. They do almost as much as nurses do, minus pushing medications. Okay. So, and I want to be very, very clear that nurses are rock stars. Okay. They run the hospital. That they do. They simply do. Everybody else are pawns. The nurses run the hospitals. And being an ER technician, doing some of those skills, starting IVs and, helping out with patient care and doing a variety, learning rhythm interpretations and learning pharmacology and pathophysiology just by being around it, I knew was going to help me in paramedic school. So I decided to apply to the hospital as my full-time gig once I retired. So I'm an EMT part-time. I retired from the Commonwealth and I applied to the hospital as an ER technician full-time, which is what I still do now. And like I said, it's our job to assist the nurses. The nurses are the rock stars. They're the ones that do that run the ER, but it's my job to assist them with a variety of different tasks. And I love it. I enjoy all the nurses that I work with. They're all rock stars. They're all really awesome people. I work the night shift. It's 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. And I couldn't ask for a better group of people to work with. I mean, they're just the best, and like I said, I initially decided that I wanted to do that to kind of assist me with paramedic school. I started paramedic school in August last year. I'm done in August this year.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm getting close. And it has helped. It has helped quite a bit. Paramedic school is significantly more challenging than I anticipated, to say the least. I was warned. I was, hey, it's challenging. It's going to be tough. Get your head screwed on right. And even with all of that, it was still more than what I anticipated.
Right.
But I love working at the hospital so much with these nurses that even once I'm done with paramedic school, I'll probably stay at the hospital full time and do the paramedic gig part time because I really, really enjoy working with that group of people.
That's pretty awesome. Seems like you kind of found your purpose.
Yeah, I'm a much more level-headed now. When I approaching retirement from the Commonwealth, I was very anxious in multiple ways. I was anxious because, I'm retiring. I'm leaving a career field, to become an EMT or to become a working inside of an ER, and it's all new territory. I've never been in the medical field before. I don't know anything about it, so there's some anxiety there. But there's some good anxiety too, because I was really anxious to get started and be done with the Commonwealth, be done with parole, be done with all of that other BS that I had dealt with on a daily basis. And then once I started, it was very seamless for me. It was a very seamless transition. I moved into the medical field, and I just took off and I've been thriving in it. I enjoy learning about it. The human body is just an amazing machine. I learn something new every single day, and I don't know. I really, really love it. It's been fun. It's been a journey, and I can't wait to see where I go tomorrow.
Where it takes you, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, would you say that working in emergency medicine, has that challenged or helped you with your PTSD?
Well, so maybe a little bit of both. There has been some challenges. So getting into the emergency medical field, I obviously knew that I was going to be helping people on their worst day. I knew that you're gonna see some things that a lot of people don't ever see in their lifetime. You're in terms of trauma, physical trauma, car wrecks and violence, that type of thing. The one thing really, to be honest, that I didn't really take into consideration was the suicides. Surprisingly enough, I've been on a lot of suicides just in the last 3 years, 2.5 years. But yeah, and I'm okay with death. I'm okay with seeing the results of traumatic car crashes and those kinds of injuries and death and things like that. But the suicides kind of stick with me a little bit, and I've seen everything from, the very, very first suicide I ever went to was a guy in his late 80s, which is, that's a straight, you don't think about that a whole lot. That's not something you hear about, The very last suicide I had was on Christmas Eve, this past Christmas Eve, yeah. And so we get called out to those, and we have to confirm death. We have to confirm that they are in fact dead, that we can't work them, and there's also been suicides where they were still alive when I got there, and we worked it. We worked the body. We worked them. We kept them alive. We put them on the helicopter. The helicopter flew them away. They lived for 2 days and died, 2 days later, so, and everything in between, but, I've had those mental health struggles. I've dealt with those things in my past, those thoughts and those, so those kind of resonate with me a little bit. Those kind of sit with me a little bit. They make me think, they kind of bring me back a little bit. And so I would say that those kinds of calls are the ones for me that are just a little bit more challenging than some of the other ones,
Right. Yeah. You could probably relate to some of the issues that these people are having and those frame of mind that they're going through to want to, in their own lives, obviously.
Yeah. It's a tough thing, and to arrive on scene and see somebody who has, gone through with it and made that very last decision in their life, that's a traumatic thing. That's a tough thing,
I can imagine. So you had said that you're 90% disabled with the 70% tied to your PTSD. When did you first realize you needed to seek help?
Yeah. So that would have been, right around the 2016, 2017 timeframe. My ex had left with the kids and went back to California. I was spiraling out of control. I was, participating in all of that very reckless behavior. And, it was my current wife, Kelsey. She's the one who talked me into it and kind of, I'm not going to say that she forced me. Like, she didn't give me any ultimatums or anything, at least that I can remember. She'll tell you that I have the worst memory on the planet, which is mostly true. But I don't think there were any ultimatums there, but there was just a lot of, pressure from her to get the treatment. And she was right. She was absolutely right. It's what I needed. I needed to do that. And, I had pressure from, my mom and my brothers, who are back in California. They knew that I was really going through it, and of course they suggested the treatment and, made their, suggestions and such. But really the award goes to my wife, Kelsey, for kind of making me do that, because like I said, it did change me, it did change me just a little bit. It changed me just enough, just enough to kind of feel normal again, not, be so angry. And again, too, it certainly was not something that happened overnight. And I think that is a big misconception, too, is that, people think that, oh, well, I went to treatment last week and, I don't feel any better. Well, no shit. That doesn't happen overnight.
No.
You know what I mean? It takes time, and it took a lot of years for me to get there, and I still struggle. I still struggle to today. It's never, I don't think that it's ever not going to be a struggle for me, where I get angry. The difference is now is when I get upset about something or when I get really angry, I kind of, there's some recognition there. I recognize where I'm at, what I'm doing, and how to approach it appropriately,
Right.
And that's some of the differences. And then, like I said, the meds too. The meds really are something that really, really helped me, but yeah, to answer the question, it's thanks to her for that. And, she's the one that deserves the award for that.
Yeah, she's definitely your hero.
She is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, she has saved me in more ways than one, and that's the truth.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have a similar lady like that loves me enough to wants to encourage me to do better and seek help. And I was finally willing to listen to her.
Yeah, I mean that's how it was. That's how it turned out for me.
Yeah.
I didn't go right away. I didn't want any part of it, but yeah, I caved under the peer pressure, the wife pressure, and it was good. It's exactly what I needed. I needed to do that, and I'm thankful for that.
That's pretty awesome. Now, you said that your wife also works in corrections. How does having a partner who understands the job help with navigating life after that service?
Well, it's pretty great actually, because her and I, in terms of work, we can speak the same language. I can come home and talk about work, and though she's not necessarily in the medical field, but she has an understanding of like kind of what I do on a daily basis, the things that I do, and likewise, so because I worked in prison, she's a lieutenant. She's a security lieutenant.
Nice.
She does a lot of like internal investigations and that kind of thing. She gets rid of the dirty staff. She was a gang lieutenant at one point. She did that job, and she's they call her the Black Widow. Because she if you're doing the wrong thing, she's gonna murder you. You're fired. You're done. It's a done deal. She's very, very good at her job. She's very, very good at her job. She doesn't think she is. She thinks she's just as average as the next guy. But her bosses, her coworkers, her peers, all have a lot of respect for her because of how good she is at her job.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so because of the job that she does, she comes home with lots of stories, and she needs a degree of decompression as well, and she can talk to me about work stories and things like that, and I have an understanding of what she's talking about when she uses jail language, and things like that. I know what she's saying, So there's some good back and forth there, and I think that because we have the ability to decompress in that manner, that helps quite a bit with some of that.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a pretty good coping strategy and a good support system, being able to communicate with your spouse.
Yeah, that's we have our moments of poor communication, just like everybody else,
Yeah.
And I feel like things could always be better. I think communication can always be better. I don't think there's no such thing as perfect communication. It can always be better.
Right.
But the lifestyle that her and I live, communication is very, very important. And I think that when we do communicate, we do it well. And again, I gotta take a few of the heat rounds here. My memory's not the best. I forget a lot of things, and she makes sure to remind me that she told me about that already.
Right.
But that's on me. That's my fault. And I know that I have that flaw, and I do my best with it, but
Right.
I'm not perfect at it. So
trust me, I'm in the same boat. I always get in trouble for that.
yeah.
It's like, you don't listen to me.
Yep.
It's like, I was listening. I just can't remember.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the unfortunate reality of my household.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in our final thoughts, what's one of the things you'd say to someone listening who's struggling with PTSD or loss, especially after military service?
As cliche as it sounds, you got to get the help. You got to get help. At the end of the day, that's what the fix is. You have to get help, and help doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go get on drugs or you need to have a therapist. You need to find whatever it is that helps you. So if it's, fishing every single Sunday for the rest of your life, if that's how you decompress and that's what helps you, well, then that's your therapy. If you think that you need to be put on a mood stabilizer like myself, I'm not ashamed of it. That's one of the meds that I take. It helps keep me on the straight and narrow. If that's what you think you need, then that's what you need to do. People, it's my opinion, it's my experience that people are not going to get help until they're ready. So you can beat that dead horse all day long. You can try to throw your ultimatums around. You can try to do your interventions and, all of the different things. But until that person is ready to get the help, until they're ready to submit and bite that bullet, the probability of it happening is low. It just simply is.
Right.
They have to be ready to get that help. But once they are ready, you as the supporters, the support group, need to be there to support them. And their method of treatment might not be what you want. I'm telling Bill that you need to go see a therapist. Well, that might not be the best source of treatment for him. It might be that Sunday fishing that might be his therapy. So you have to try to, I feel like there's a fine line there. And you got to find out what works best for you, and you gotta figure that out. And at the end of the day, you have to get the help, whatever that help is. That's what you have to do. Otherwise it's not going to get better.
Right. Even if it's just talking to somebody that is a listening ear, whether it's a friend or coworker or somebody that's going to be there for you, somebody you can trust.
Even if it's just talking to somebody, anything, whatever it is, whatever everybody's need and degree of help is different. There's no, it's like a fingerprint. Everybody's different. It's not the same for everybody. So whatever it is, you need to figure it out and you need to get it done because, if you don't, and you're in that real deep state of depression and you're dealing with those demons, you're going to end up with somebody, in EMS at your door one day pronouncing you, and
Right.
that's not a good thing. Nobody wants that. I don't
Right.
want that as an EMS provider. Your family doesn't want that. Your loved ones, your friends, your coworkers, your peers, nobody wants that, so you got to bite that bullet and just get the help, man. You got to figure out what it is and get it done.
Right. And I just wanted to stress to people that we're talking about a positive, healthy outlet, not
Absolutely.
something that is destructive.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. 100%. I'm actually glad you brought some clarity to that.
Right.
So at the time, my outlet was self-destructive.
Right.
And that is not, for 100% clarity, that is not what we are talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are not talking about the self-destructive behavior here. We're talking about the positive, constructive help.
Right.
You're talking to
Healthy.
somebody. Yeah, you're seeing your family on Sundays. You're going to church. You're whatever, something positive to bring you out of that rut. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Healthy alternatives.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Definitely agree with that 100%. So how do you want Jose's legacy and your own to be remembered?
Well, Jose's a real hero. He's the one that gave all. I only gave some, and he will always be remembered as such. He's a hero in everybody's eyes, and that will never change. That definitively will never change. There's not a single person I know that knows Jose that would see him in any other light. He was, a shining star when he was here with us. He was bright and smart and fit and energetic and just all of the things, and he left it all out on the battlefield, and he is the true hero.
Yeah.
As far as my legacy is concerned, the truth is I don't really feel I don't need a legacy. I don't feel like I have really earned that. I'm just kind of here just doing my day to day, and when that final day comes, my family knows what I want. I don't want anything big. I don't want a big service. My my dad's mom was cremated and buried at sea. My dad was cremated, buried at sea. I want the same for myself, and I I don't need anything super memorable. That's not how I'm built. That's not me. I have a very small circle of friends. I'm not a very social guy. I just kind of keep to myself for the most part, and I don't need a whole lot of that. But Jose does. Jose does because he gave all. He left it all on the battlefield, and he deserves that.
Well, we definitely give our love and our thanks to his service, and as well as cheers and our love and our thanks to his family. And, we are definitely saddened by the loss of one of our soldiers. We always support our military members, and, in my family, we have a lot of members that served in the military, from my grandfather all the way down to my brothers. So, and my cousin as well. The reason why we started the podcast. So we definitely appreciate that. And we definitely thank you and appreciate your service as well. You're doing an honorable thing. You guys matter. Your voices matter. And what you
Well,
guys
thank you.
do is a real big thing.
Appreciate
Whether
that.
you see it or not, it is a big thing.
Appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Uh, but I definitely appreciate you coming on here and telling your story. I know it was probably pretty hard to kind of want to come out and open up and let these things out. Hopefully, it's helped you some way to coping with some of the traumas. And I know, coming on this, doing this podcast has definitely helped me overcome a lot of traumas myself and dealing with social anxiety and all that kind of stuff. Because, like you, I'm not a very social person. And when Brianne suggested I do this podcast, I thought she was freaking nuts.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're rocking it though, man. You're doing a great job, man. I admire you. From listening to your other episodes and such, like I know a little bit about your story, and I got all the respect in the world for you, man. I mean, you did a complete 180, and you're rocking out right now, man. I got nothing but respect for it, man.
And
Nice
thank you.
work.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely had to come out of my shell. And I think with my cousin's passing, that was the catalyst to push me to honor him. And this is how I honor him through the podcast. And also, we started a nonprofit foundation in his name, which I am the president of that, and his wife is the vice president. And so, we're trying to do good things, and the nonprofit is to help you guys and help new recruits, and to try to get people get started in that field, and maybe get you guys some uh, mental health help. Also, we're trying to get juveniles a head start from changing their lifestyle from being dumb kids to being responsible adults and get counseling, and hopefully someday they could become a first responder, because they haven't passed that point yet.
Yeah, yeah.
so
It's all good things, man. All good things.
so that's our mission, that's what we're doing. And you know uh, I appreciate you being on here, and I thank you for your encouragement. And I definitely appreciate everything that you've come on and said. And I know it's pretty hard, but uh, I mean, it's going to be hard to re-listen to. But I mean, not that it was bad. It was just a lot of times I have to re-listen to everything and edit and stuff. And
Sure. No, I get it. I get it. I appreciate you having me, man.
yeah,
It was nice talking to you. It was good to meet you. It was nice talking to you. I really appreciate you having me.
yeah, absolutely. I seen some of your content on TikTok and stuff, and I felt like I needed to reach out to you. You seem like somebody that I really wanted to talk to, and I felt like you're a pretty decent person, a really cool dude. And I'm glad you came on here finally, and you've done us a great honor and a great service. So I
Well, I
thank you.
appreciate that. Appreciate that. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, and tell your wife that we thank her for her service as well. Because corrections officers, they're not considered in the first responders world, but we do consider them first responders. They are part of the family as well.
Yep. Yep.
So, the cops put the bad guys away, and then, the corrections officers keep them where they
Yeah.
should be. So
Yep.
it's a definitely a dangerous job, and I don't envy anybody doing it. So
It is. She's got inmates pissed off at her and staff members pissed off at her.
yeah,
She deals with both of them.
yeah. That one's a tough cookie. Let me tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I'll tell you what though, she's
Yeah,
respected, man. She's both feared and respected. I'll tell you that.
that's a good thing. You know, uh, to have that balance of respect and fear, because you don't want to step out of line, but you want to get that respect as well. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm proud of her.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go ahead and let you get off of here. And we really appreciate you being on here, man. And we love and respect everything you've done for this country and your community. Yeah, just God bless you, and just keep doing what you're doing. Keep that mental health up, and stay strong, man.
Will do, man. I appreciate you having me, man. Take it easy out
All
there.
righty. You take care, buddy.
All right.
Have a good one.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.